With a new Trump presidency, tariffs are on everyone's mind. Could that mean some opportunities for investors? Here to break down 7 stock picks that could benefit from the tariffs is MarketBeat Analyst Chris Markoch. So, Chris, this is a big topic and something a lot of people are talking about. It could impact a lot of industries.
I think this is one of those topics that we're going to be looking back on this sometime in 2025, and we're going to know whether this was really a big deal or whether this was just sort of a posturing thing. I don't know. I don't think a lot of analysts really know, and I think that's what's causing a lot of the volatility in the market right now.
Well, let's get into your pick of
Sure.
7 stocks. So you cover a few different sectors that could potentially see some impacts if tariffs do become a factor in 2025. So what's your first pick?
So my first pick is a company called Nucor. Ticker symbol is NUE. It's a steel company. I think the one thing that we can be sure of with tariffs is that there's going to be some continuing tariffs on the steel industry. That started in the previous Trump administration. It was continued in the Biden administration. This looks like an area where, again, those tariffs are going to continue, especially when it comes to Chinese and Brazilian steel, and that's going to benefit Nucor, which again makes steel right here in the United States.
Chris, I don't think this is the first time we've heard you talk about this stock. I know it's one of your favorites for dividends.
Yeah, Nucor's falls into that category of being a dividend king, which means it's increased its dividend for at least 50 consecutive years. With Nucor, that's a 52-year streak right now, and that's an added benefit that investors will get along with the potential for some upside here in the stock in 2025.
All right, let's move on to your second pick that
Sure.
could be impacted by tariffs in 2025.
Okay, so this is a company called Trex. Ticker symbol is TREX, and they make composite decking and railing and other outdoor type of living products. So my thesis behind this is that one of the areas that is being targeted for potential tariffs is lumber. So obviously, if lumber prices go up, consumers may be looking for alternatives for their home remodeling projects. That could be a very big catalyst for Trex in the short term.
Yeah, both steel and lumber are absolutely increases we saw
Absolutely.
in 2020. And so it kind of feels like it's a potential repeat of what we saw before could happen again this year.
Right. And the one thing I like about Trex is it's sort of agnostic to what's going on in the entire housing market, because people are going to choose to do the projects that they might do with Trex, whether or not they're going into a new construction or whether they're just staying in the home that they're in.
All right, let's move on to your third pick. This one also carpentry, but maybe a little different.
I'll be honest, this was kind of a stock that I had to do a little research on when I was doing the article, and it's Carpenter Technology. It would sound like it's in the carpenter industry, but really it's in the 3D printing industry. Carpenter, in addition to 3D printing, it also supplies steel products and other additive products for various industries, including defense and aerospace. That is sort of where I was leaning to with my thesis on the stock. Defense and aerospace has been a red hot sector. It's going to continue to be a hot sector, even with probably some trimming from the DOGE committee. We're still going to be spending on defense, and the aerospace industry is still going to be hot.
What are analysts saying about this stock in particular?
It's trading above its consensus price target. But in November, JP Morgan Chase initiated their coverage on this stock with an overweight rating and a price target of $220, which is about 10% above where the stock's trading now. So I think there's maybe some bullish sentiment that the analysts might not be catching up with right now.
It sounds good. Let's move on to your fourth pick.
My next pick is Carvana. Again, I think this is a pick that's going to a lot of the commodity issues, but the reality is that new car prices are still rising, and for some families that's putting them out of range, and that sets up very nicely for a company like Carvana, which had a very good 2024 and may have a good 2025, as consumers are still going to be looking to get the best value that they can. And for a lot of people, that means used cars.
Yeah, that's another repeat of what we saw 4 years
Yeah.
ago with prices really changing. So I think this is a good one of if we continue to see that same trend, this one
Yep.
does make sense. Let's move on to your fifth one. Also same industry, maybe same reason too.
Well, yeah, GM, same industry, slightly different reason here. GM has managed to thread the needle pretty well between providing electric vehicles that a small but growing percentage of Americans are desiring, and also keeping kind of true to their roots and providing the gas powered vehicles that a lot of consumers still demand. And GM's done a really nice job of threading that needle. It's reflected in their earnings. I like the upside for this stock again in 2025 for those reasons. There aren't a lot of sure things in the automotive sector, but GM certainly seems like a good pick if you were going to go there.
Now, how do you think tariffs could impact GM moving forward?
The Trump administration is threatening to make Chinese cars more expensive, but it would also make it easier for GM to sell into China and other countries. If we can work with some sort of compromise with China, and we can say we'll make it easier for China to sell into the United States, then it would be easier for GM to sell into China and vice versa.
Yeah, that also makes sense. Moving on to your sixth pick, this was the one that surprised me the most on a list of how it
Right.
could be impacted by tariffs.
Intel is the pick, and one of the things that's happening that we saw happen since 2020 is United States companies have been moving quickly to onshore their supply chains into the United States, or at least certainly give it less exposure to China. The semiconductor industry is one of those big industries. We've seen this even before the Trump administration's been in place with the CHIPS Act. The United States wants to be a leader in this sector, and this is an area where Intel is going to excel because Intel already has infrastructure in place to make the chips in America. They want to become the leading semiconductor manufacturer in the United States. They're well on their way to doing that. Analysts love Intel, and they're predicting a huge price spike here in 2025. The key here for investors is Intel's got to execute because they've had a history of not executing on their plans.
Now, let's get on to your seventh and
Yeah.
final pick in this list.
The last pick is Coinbase, and some people might wonder where cryptocurrency fits in with tariffs. Well, a lot of the things with tariffs have to do with it's going to be disruptive to the US dollar. Just with inflation data coming out and the rise in the 10-year yield and all that, right now, this is going to be a volatile year. Investors just don't know what the trend is going to be with the dollar. The bullish case for cryptocurrency is as a protection against the depreciation of the dollar. Coinbase is a safer way for investors to get exposure to cryptocurrency without buying Bitcoin or Ethereum or any of the other altcoins directly. It's going to move pretty similar to some of the cryptocurrencies. You're going to probably get a little bit less volatility, yet you still can get exposure to the sector.
A very interesting pick for sure. And like you said, something we may see play out if tariffs do become a big part of the story in 2025. Chris, thank you so much for breaking down this list for us. If you are worried about how the new presidency or anything might impact your portfolio this year, check out our free premium report on reducing the risk in your portfolio. You can scan the QR code or click the link in the description of this video to get that free report from MarketBeat.com. Thanks again for watching, everyone. And as always, happy investing.